This woman was by the side of one of the world's most brutal dictators for 9 years. Muammar Gaddafi didn't trust anyone except her. His Ukrainian nurse, Galyna Kolotnytska, kept his secrets for years. She never spoke about what really happened inside his infamous tent. But after Gaddafi's regime collapsed, the truth slowly emerged. Soon after she left Libya, Galina gave birth to a baby boy. But who was the father? What was Gaddafi's personal nurse hiding all these years? And what happened to her after everything fell apart? Stay with us, the secrets are finally being revealed. Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for over 4 decades, from 1969 until 2011. He was one of the most controversial leaders in the Arab world. Known for his eccentric behavior, he often wore colorful robes and dark sunglasses in public. But what really made him stand out was the way he traveled. Wherever he went, whether it was Rome, Moscow, New York, Madrid, or Paris, Gaddafi brought with him a large Bedouin tent. It wasn't just a symbol of his heritage. This tent was bulletproof, specially designed to keep him safe while honoring the traditions of his nomadic ancestors. He would set it up in the gardens of foreign presidential palaces or in large parks during official visits, insisting on sleeping there rather than in luxury hotels. But even more unusual was the group of women who surrounded him, known as the Amazonian Guard. These were female bodyguards, trained to fight and protect the Libyan leader. Dressed in military uniforms, they never left his side. Gaddafi claimed he supported women's liberation, and the presence of female guards was presented as proof of his progressive views. He said he wanted to empower women in a male-dominated society. But behind the scenes, things were much darker. Some people in his inner circle later revealed that the real purpose of these women may not have been protection. Instead, they suggested that these women were carefully selected and kept close for reasons other than security or empowerment. As early as the 1970s and 1980s, there were rumors about how Gaddafi treated the women around him. Female reporters and members of his staff spoke quietly of uncomfortable encounters. Over time, these whispers grew louder. After he died in 2011, chilling testimonies began to emerge. A Libyan psychologist, part of a team investigating crimes committed during the civil war, interviewed several former bodyguards. According to her, at least 5 of them said they had suffered abuse at the hands of Gaddafi and other top officials. They said they had been forced into their roles and could not leave. French journalist Annick Kogin later published a book based on these accounts. One of the most shocking stories came from a woman named Soraya. She said she was taken as a teenager and kept in captivity for years. According to her, she experienced unimaginable cruelty. She was held in a basement and wasn't allowed to see her family. Her story suggested she wasn't the only one. Many other girls were taken similarly. The people who allegedly helped make this system possible were close to Gaddafi, including his chief of protocol and his trusted assistants. These stories painted a very different picture from what Gaddafi showed the world. Behind the showy tent and the image of a leader who supported women, there may have been a secret world of pain and control, one that only began to surface after his regime ended. In Muammar Gaddafi's inner circle, few people held as much quiet influence as his nurses. These women were more than just medical staff. They were always near him, carefully selected and highly trusted. There was something very specific about Gaddafi's nurses. They all came from Ukraine. He refused to be treated by nurses from his own country for reasons still unclear. He didn't trust Libyan nurses, only Ukrainian ones. Some say it was because of their professional reputation. Others believe it was something more personal. In any case, he made sure he was always surrounded by Slavic women in white coats. Gaddafi took his health very seriously. His nurses regularly checked his blood pressure and pulse and made sure everything was under control. He understood that, with age, the heart needs extra care. Nurses had a very special place in Gaddafi's life, and not just during his later years. Even his wife, Safia Farkash, had once worked as a nurse. They met shortly after Gaddafi came to power in 1969, when he was hospitalized with appendicitis. Safia was caring for him at the time, and it was then that they fell in love. The two married soon after and remained together until the very end of his life. Together, they had 7 biological children. But it's no secret that Gaddafi was a man of intense desires. Despite having a wife and children, there were always rumors about lovers, secret affairs, and even illegitimate children. His personal life remained surrounded by mystery and speculation. Among the women in his orbit, his Ukrainian nurses stood out. Not only were they carefully chosen, but many of them were strikingly beautiful. Gaddafi reportedly selected them himself, based not only on their professional skills, but also on their appearance. He preferred tall, elegant blondes, and they often traveled with him on international visits. One of these nurses would eventually become known across the globe, Galyna Kolotnytska. Her name first appeared in headlines after a major leak of classified U.S. documents on WikiLeaks. In a secret cable written by U.S. Ambassador Jean Kretz, Kolotnytska was described as a voluptuous blonde who never left Gaddafi's side. According to the report, the Libyan leader refused to travel anywhere without her. Galina began working for Gaddafi in 2001 and stayed with him until almost the very end. She was part of his everyday life for nearly a decade, often seen by his side, but rarely speaking publicly. But who was this woman, and what secrets did she keep? When Gaddafi's regime collapsed in 2011, his trusted Ukrainian nurse, Galyna Kolotnytska, suddenly vanished from the spotlight. She quietly returned to her hometown in Ukraine, far from the chaos of Tripoli, but peace didn't follow her. Instead, her arrival sparked a storm of curiosity. Journalists surrounded her house. Cameras followed her every move. But Galina said nothing. For weeks, she refused to speak. She wore dark sunglasses, kept her head down, and ran from reporters. People waited for a statement, a single comment, anything. But the woman who had spent 9 years by Gaddafi's side stayed silent. And that silence only fueled more questions. After all, Galina had been closer to Gaddafi than almost anyone. According to a confidential U.S. diplomatic cable from 2009, leaked during the WikiLeaks scandal, the U.S. ambassador to Libya at the time, Jean Kretz, described her as a voluptuous blonde who never left Gaddafi's side. The report stated that she was the only one who truly knew his daily routine. It also revealed that during a stop in Portugal, the Libyan government sent a private jet just to bring her to him. That's how much he relied on her. What had she seen? What did she know? People around the world were desperate to hear her story, but Galina kept her lips sealed. Then, something unexpected happened. Shortly after her return to Ukraine, it became known that Galina was pregnant. Whispers turned into headlines, and rumors spread quickly. Could the father be Muammar Gaddafi himself? After all, she'd been part of his inner circle for nearly a decade. The two had traveled together, lived in the same compounds, and shared many private moments, far away from the eyes of the public. But Galina refused to confirm anything. Instead, she disappeared again, this time asking for political asylum in Norway, claiming she no longer felt safe in Ukraine. Was it the media pressure? Or was she trying to escape something far more dangerous? Her silence raised even more questions. Why was she so afraid to speak? What had she witnessed in Gaddafi's world? A world of luxury, secrecy, and fear. And most importantly, what was she still hiding? Before she became a mystery to the world, Galyna Kolotnytska lived a very ordinary life. Born in 1976 in the small Ukrainian city of Brovary, she followed a simple path. After finishing medical school in Kyiv, she worked as a nurse in a local clinic. She was married to an electrician at a nearby factory, and together they had a daughter. Life was quiet until tragedy changed everything. In 1992, Galina's husband passed away. Suddenly, she was left alone with a young child and no clear future. She kept working, but life in post-Soviet Ukraine was difficult, especially for single mothers. In a surprising move, she later took a job as a cook at Ukraine's Antarctic Research Station, one of the most remote places on Earth. There, she was remembered as someone who took her duties seriously, especially regarding hygiene and discipline. But her life would take another dramatic turn in the early 2000s. In 2001, seeking better opportunities, Galina accepted an overseas position through a foreign medical agency. Her destination? Libya. At the time, Libya had become a popular place for Ukrainian medical workers, thanks to higher salaries and strong demand. By 2011, an estimated 500 Ukrainian doctors and nurses were working nationwide. Galina started as a nurse in a Libyan hospital, but she didn't stay there long. Soon, she was invited to serve in one of the country's most elite and secretive roles, working directly with Muammar Gaddafi. The Libyan leader was known to employ only Ukrainian nurses, and for unclear reasons, he preferred them over any other nationality. Galina became the most prominent among the 4 Ukrainian nurses in his service. Her quiet presence, professionalism, and calm demeanor set her apart. She wasn't just a nurse. She became a part of Gaddafi's private world. How exactly she rose to that level remains a mystery. But one thing is clear. Her journey from a modest life in Brovary to the heart of one of the world's most secretive regimes is anything but ordinary. While Galyna Kolotnytska stayed silent after her return to Ukraine, another Ukrainian nurse who had worked for Gaddafi was ready to talk. Her name was Oksana Belinska. Unlike Galina, Oksana didn't spend nearly a decade at the Libyan leader's side. Her time in Tripoli lasted just a couple of years. She wasn't part of his closest circle, but still, she had the rare opportunity to see how Gaddafi lived and what life looked like inside his guarded world. In interviews with Ukrainian journalists, Oksana described Gaddafi in surprisingly kind terms. She called him a decent man, someone who treated his staff well and paid attention to those who worked for him. She shared how she had come to Libya almost by chance. When she arrived in Tripoli, she had no idea she would be working at a hospital that served only the Libyan leader and his family. But that's exactly what happened. Oksana and a few other Ukrainian nurses were selected to work near Gaddafi's private residence, a massive, heavily guarded compound. According to her, the residence was surrounded by high fences, barbed wire, military vehicles, and armed guards. Inside, however, life was calm. She said that even though Gaddafi had 9 children and several grandchildren, most of his family lived in regular apartments, not inside the main compound. She revealed one curious detail. Staff members who worked closely with Gaddafi were often gifted wristwatches with his portrait on them. Every year, on September 1st, the anniversary of his rise to power, Gaddafi would reward his staff with Italian-made gold watches. Some people who worked for him long enough had entire collections of them. These watches became a sort of secret badge. If you saw someone wearing one, it meant they were close to the Libyan leader. And among the nurses, Gaddafi had a nickname. They called him Daddy. It was a mix of respect and affection, a term used quietly among themselves. Some say it reflected how he wanted to be seen, as a powerful, generous father figure to those around him. Oksana also revealed that during foreign trips, staff members received pocket money for shopping, and Gaddafi would travel with 2 extra planes, one for luggage and one just for his vehicles. His favorite was an armored American limousine, though he used a Jeep for desert travel. She also spoke about his personal habits. According to Oksana, Gaddafi was not demanding when it came to food. He loved pasta and preferred traditional couscous with lamb or camel meat. After meetings, he enjoyed sitting outside in the fresh air, thinking quietly. And what about the rumors surrounding his health? Oksana firmly denied them. She said Gaddafi's heart and blood pressure were perfectly fine, and added that he had regular checkups and took care of himself. For a man his age, she said, he was in better shape than many younger people. Of course, Oksana was not part of Gaddafi's inner circle, and she didn't see what happened behind closed doors. But her testimony offers a rare glimpse into his daily life, one that seems calm, even routine, on the surface. As more stories about Gaddafi's private life began to surface, the nurses who had worked around him found themselves at the center of a media storm. While Oksana Balinska had painted a respectful, almost fatherly image of the leader, she and other Ukrainian nurses were soon forced to respond to far more scandalous claims. Tabloids and foreign reporters speculated that some of the women close to Gaddafi may have had personal relationships with him. Going far beyond the professional boundaries of medical care, the rumors quickly escalated, especially when it became public knowledge that Galyna Kolotnytska had given birth to a child not long after returning to Ukraine. For the press, the connection seemed too suspicious to ignore. Had she been more than just a nurse? The silence only added fuel to the fire, but those who knew Galina stepped forward to defend her. Her daughter, in particular, gave a strong and emotional statement to the press. "My mom, Gaddafi's lover? That's nonsense. She never told me anything like that. She called me today, shocked by these rumors. She doesn't understand where all of this is coming from. She's beside herself. And so am I." From the outside, the attention might have looked like fame, but for the women involved, it felt more like harassment. Even Oksana, who had been more open with the media, expressed frustration at the false narratives. She specifically rejected the most graphic rumors, those involving wild parties or inappropriate behavior between Gaddafi and his nurses. "Those stories are just made up," she insisted. "Yes, he was caring and attentive to his staff, but nothing like that ever happened." She also clarified a common misconception about Gaddafi's famous Bedouin tent, which had become a symbol of his eccentricity. "He didn't live in that tent," she said. "It was used for official meetings and ceremonies. Nobody stayed in it. We definitely didn't live or sleep there." The nurses defended not just their reputations, but their work. They had come to Libya for jobs, for the chance to earn a better living than what was possible back home. And for most of them, that's all it had ever been. But in the years following Gaddafi's fall, truth and fiction became increasingly difficult to untangle. Those who spoke were questioned, and those who remained silent were accused of hiding something. Years have passed since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. His inner circle's once tightly guarded world collapsed in just a matter of days, live on international television. For many, it was a moment of justice. For others, it was a shock. And for the women who had spent years by his side, it was deeply personal. The Ukrainian nurses who had cared for Gaddafi didn't celebrate his fall, quite the opposite. According to those who knew them, they were devastated when they saw the brutal images of his final moments. The man they had once called Daddy, the one who had gifted them gold watches and asked if they were eating well, was suddenly gone, dragged through the streets and humiliated in front of the world. They never spoke badly about him, not even once. Despite all the rumors and the media frenzy, the nurses stayed loyal in their silence. They shared memories of hospital routines, polite conversations, and long flights, but never the darker tales the world expected. As for Galyna Kolotnytska, the nurse closest to Gaddafi, her story took a quieter turn. After leaving Ukraine, Galina moved to Norway, where she started a new life far from the spotlight. There, she reportedly married a Turkish businessman and eventually took his last name, becoming Galina Thompson. In time, she gave birth to a son named Nicholas. On social media, she created accounts under the name Galyna Kolot, occasionally posting pictures of her new life. One caption under a photo of her little boy read simply, "My son is my joy and my life." Indeed, the boy looks nothing like Gaddafi. The rumors that once surrounded his birth, the whispers of secret affairs and hidden paternity, now seem like fiction. The real story, it seems, was far less sensational than people wanted it to be. So what can we learn from all of this? Sometimes, history is louder than truth. People see what they want to see, especially when it comes to powerful figures. And yet, behind the headlines and conspiracy theories, there are always human lives. Quiet, complex, and often misunderstood. What do you think? What secrets is Galina still keeping about Gaddafi? Was she just a nurse? Or did she see more than the world will ever know? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.